Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. Well, it's budget day 2022-2023. The Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert, will begin proceedings later this afternoon. And as the nation anticipates what is to come, I must ask you, did you fill up your gas tank yesterday? Because apparently across Trinidad and Tobago, there were rumors circulating that there were lines across the nation's gas stations. I actually couldn't verify that this morning, and I didn't bother to because, quite frankly, it's not necessary. Put it this way, you trying to get the last few at the old price, but in a couple of days' time, you're going to have to pay the new price anyway. Alongside me, and I don't know if he filled up his tank, probably, I have to, is my co-host, colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And ironically, I normally don't drive that much. My commute is not necessarily that far in terms of actual total distance. So I did fill up my tank like last week. So technically speaking, I already did it without really thinking. I didn't actually go through the panic buying. But it is budget day today, and there's a lot of anticipation of it, like you said. So obviously, we're going to get into that. And then there was some interesting things that the union leader of the OWTU once again said some interesting things that and it's funny how my complaints are very similar to my complaints with political messaging from government or opposition parties. But I actually wanted to just, start off the day with our good old friends from Twitter and the rest and reflects. Or now go to work or else. That seems to be the replacement phrase because government got an injunction. And I do wonder to some extent, exactly what was the thinking behind both parties involved. Is it that Twitter was looking to try to leverage the budget day to I don't know if it was a last desperate hurrah or if they were actually putting pressure on the government, because the government using an injunction, it's almost like if the veneer of, well, we're not going to call it striking if you don't call it striking, that's gone. Now the government is like, we went to the court, we're going to call it industrial action or whatever. We're going to say it's illegal. We're going to get the court to block you from doing it. And the implications of it down the line, right? Because now you have a court making a ruling on it. Depending on how far it goes, it might, by court ruling, make it illegal for teachers to rest and reflect moving forward. I don't know what the limits are. So what might start it off as just, a tit for tat with regards to we're going to put pressure on you or try to put pressure on you. We're going to block you because we fed up with this. It might actually, Twitter might have actually pushed the government to the point where there's going to be a permanent resolution to this gray area. And as you know, in our country, there's a lot of gray area with regards to law. And I would love it if this was a sign that maybe we get all of these things sorted out. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case.
Well, the mere fact that Twitter has complied and then has indicated, listen, all teachers, the injunction, we will respect it, go out to work today. To me, it shows two things. One, clearly, the mere fact that the court granted the injunction and Twitter is complying with it, I'm looking at your reaction. I'm trying to figure out from what
I'm trying to see where you're going.
Because I think Twitter, in their argument, has been stating, this is in the best interest of industrial relations, negotiations, the spirit of negotiations. The government has not followed through with that. And that has been one of their arguments. Could it be that Twitter is looking at it from one, the legal aspect, listen, we don't have a choice because we have an injunction, or, listen, we've put you in a corner, you have reacted, we are going to comply, and we're only going to comply out of respect for the industrial court. You have no respect for the industrial court, you have no respect for industrial relations, so guess what? You only have decided to go to them, you've only decided to put forward some level of negotiations, and not even a negotiation, you just moved to the industrial court because you had no choice, you felt you had no choice. So I think what Twitter has done, I was disappointed to hear that there was going to be another day of rest and reflection on Friday. But at the same time, the mere fact that the government has acted, the ball is now in tutors' court. What is next in terms of their direction, in terms of their fight? Because according to them, today's rest and reflection was for them to reflect on their 2014 salaries and how the budget for 2022-2023 reflects off that. So that was their entire argument.
I would just like to find out, I haven't necessarily spoken to a teacher, asked them for their paycheck. What is the actual paycheck that we're talking about here for teachers? You know, the high end, the low end, how does it vary? How does seniority vary it? What are the perks? How much vacation time do they have? How much time do they actually get to be on vacation as opposed to having to work on their vacation? Because having to prep things, because I get it, when the ministry wants to change syllabus every year, now the teachers have to either band together, or in the case of my old primary school, there was only one teacher per year, there was only one class per year, at least at the time, so they have to figure out their year for themselves, maybe with their teacher's assistant, prep for the next year. Like, I know that teachers are overworked. What are we not hearing? We're not hearing demands about reducing our workload. We're not hearing demands of reducing the workload of the kids. We're not hearing demands of fixing the budgetary issues with regards to school administration and maintenance. We're not hearing safety concerns rarely of schools unless there's a photo opportunity. We're not hearing that. I would say that both sides don't necessarily respect industrial relations, right? I get it. I'm not saying that the politicians are going to be acting in good faith when we have a whole set of examples of questionable bad faith or questionable in-faith actions, whatever the term is, right?
But are we in a position to say that tutor is not acting in terms of best industrial relations? And the reason why I ask that is simply because their fight right now is, yes, okay, salaries and back pay is one arm of the discussion, of which we have acknowledged on this program before. But I think what we've also failed to acknowledge, no matter how many times that we've brought it up, tutors' argument right now is, listen, let us go back to the negotiating table. You're not even respecting us or respecting industrial best practice or the spirit of negotiations. You're simply just taking a back seat and you're saying that's it. That's not negotiating. So tutors' argument is valid.
The problem is when the unions want to band together, right? Well, then you kind of have to bear the consequences of other unions' actions. So we could get into Ansel Roger and his recent comments later, but with the way how Petrochin was handled, right, you could say the government acted in bad faith. I'm not necessarily, with regards to Petrochin negotiations, I'm not going to say no to that, right? My opinion is not about that. My opinion is I very much cannot say it is reasonable, right, that the unions, that the OWTU acted in good faith in the Petrochin negotiations.
Okay,
it was over 3 years. But my point is, this is the same administration. They heard a lot of the same things from other unions. They all go from the same playbook. They all say the same things. They all lack details in their arguments. They all use the same buzzwords. So to some extent, while I'm not saying that the government is a saint, I, as an outsider, I'm hearing the same things that I have heard, the same failed rhetoric. You're a union, supposedly negotiation in good faith. Why am I mainly hearing political rhetoric and all the money that you want to get?
Now, at the same time, to counter your argument, one, you didn't even speak about the fact that the government is not negotiating. You mentioned OWTU and you mentioned Petrochin,
okay,
and that's fine. But hold on, that's one point. Two, you said the same rhetoric and the same talk about government. But you do realize that you've heard the government speak more about salaries and negotiations on a political platform rather than we've actually seen in terms of the CPO. Now, the CPO, Dr. Darren Dillial, has received letters, he has distributed letters, and there has been conversations. But you can't just say your negotiations are over by, this is my final offer, and that's it. You put your final offer on the table. Great. Give the unions the opportunity to respond at the negotiation table. Don't respond on a political platform, and don't have the unions having to respond via the media. Have those negotiations first, and then maybe our conversation will be better.
So I think the real thing is, it's a tit for tat and everybody's wrong, right? That's the argument that I'm willing to accept, because what I meant to say when I was talking about how Petrochin went is, again, if they're all going to band together and they're all going to leverage each other and they're all going to identify themselves as all for one labor to some extent, and they're all going to collaborate and use the same playbook, when government is negotiating 3 years with Petrotrin, right? And Petrotrin and OWTU is going to the media. And the unions go to the media, right? So the government is saying, listen, we've seen this before. Why are we going to try to negotiate in incremental stages? It took 3 years with regards to Petrotrin. Do we have that time? No. They're going to strike now. We're not going to have 3 years of striking. Sorry, rest and reflection, right? Technically speaking, although there's an injunction, so I don't know if we could call it striking right now. They're just going to cut to the chase. Now, the argument could be made that the chase is premature, that the chase, it's a hasty decision that is not in good faith. But I can't necessarily, at the end of the day, our politicians are not great wise men. They're not the 7 sages of ancient Greece. They're not Aristotle and Plato, right? They're not Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. For the most part, we've elected very ordinary people who are responding in a very ordinary way. And the unions are the same. So we're basically seeing people have an argument, and unfortunately, the consequences of their spat is affecting the entire country. That is the head of unions, that is the politicians.
If I may ask your opinion, because I hear you when you said it's a tit for a tat and everybody's wrong. If that is the case, then what is the right thing to do? Because you made a counter argument against everything that we've heard, both on the government side and from the union side. I remember we're focusing on tutor, but what would be the right thing to do?
The right thing, I think, to do would be, one, as you said, keep as much of it out of the media. And that applies to both sides. That applies to both sides. Now, I think the government is mostly responding, but that is in part because, you know, they're waiting to see what Twitter says, right? They shouldn't do that as much as possible. If they want to respond directly to what Twitter says, that's fine. But leave your negotiation tactics behind closed doors until Twitter brings it up, and vice versa. Don't bring up necessarily what the government is saying in the media. If you want to keep it at the negotiation table, don't bring it to the media. But once you bring it to the media, don't complain if the other side brings it to the media. The other thing is, if you have claims, right? Now, the government gives us some numbers, but it's not enough. And generally speaking, overall, we don't get enough detail. So we have these claims. Which claims are right? Right? Again, if you're arguing about salaries, there are people in the private sector who got their small wages cut. And in some cases, the wages that they were going paycheck to paycheck on, that was cut. So I don't know to what extent. And maybe it's because everybody knows if we reveal the true figures, the sympathy might not be there. Or maybe because there's a technical reason why, I don't know, but you're making very bombastic claims without details. Same thing for the government. If you want to say that we can't afford it, we need more information with regards to why is it only 2%? How did you come about that figure? How is that feasible?
I hear you. I hear you. Here's where I will disagree with you. Because if the government is bringing it out on a political platform or any platform that is not the negotiation table, then Tutor has a right to respond to those claims or whatever the government is saying in public. But it's the same thing for Tutor. However, if Tutor's claims are true, that they're no longer meeting at the negotiation table, then in honesty, I can see the government as being faulty in this. However, whilst you've used the private sector as an example, that everybody's wages in the private sector was slashed across the board, minus, of course, the government ministers, because they fall under public anyway.
Well, so that's the public sector.
So that's public sector. Whilst you've used that example, understand as well that in the public sector, there's the COLA agreement, the cost of living adjustment. There's also the tripartite agreement. So as much as salaries were cut in the private sector, it doesn't necessarily apply to the public sector. One can make the argument that, listen, what you're asking for is a lot, because even if the private sector struggled, okay, we can make that argument. What applies in the private sector cannot necessarily be used as a good argument for what's taking place in the public sector.
No, but my point is, it's about the sympathy. It's about relativity, right? You're saying you're off of whichever year's salary. Well, I mean, look, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of private sector people who have to face that. And I'm not saying that and all is what makes it reasonable. What makes it reasonable is the fact that we're in an economic crisis from heavy external pressure. The fact that there is a very good chance that the money is not there, right? We know that the government, our main criticism is not they're not spending all the money, it's that they're not managing and prioritizing maybe as well as they would like. So maybe what they really need to prove is why not prioritizing these wage increases is a valid direction to take. Now the union saying that the government is not negotiating, that's fair, but you have to take it in the context of that's not the first thing they brought to the media, right? Both sides have been having a little spat, tit for tat, publicly with claims and counterclaims before. So while, yes, if the government has stopped negotiating, I hear you, that's reasonable to now come to media to say, look, they're not negotiating with us anymore and we're calling them back to the table. That can't be, they already made the mistake as well as the government of going to the media and trying to get the public involved, to apply pressure, whichever way, both sides. And they took it out of the negotiation table. So I don't, like it, yes, they should say that when it happens, but we're so far now removed because they already made the actual critical error months, years ago.
Tutor does have one thing up their hand, and that is Tutor has told teachers, okay, go out to work today, respond to your duty, what is required of you. However, teachers can still go to school, show up for work, sign the attendance register, and say that they're there, and not teach classes.
I literally thought that if Tutor was smart, that's what they should do, at the very least. And
that's a possibility. Let's not deny that this morning. I mean, many teachers in the school system are already accustomed to rest, relaxation, and, well, I'm not too sure about reflection. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on Talking Point. Now, when we return, we'll get into some more conversations as we all await what the Minister of Finance brings in his budget statement. We'll be right back after this.
Delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Join host Andy Johnson on WESN Monday, September 26th for Budget Day as we engage an expert panel of experienced economists and politicians. We break down government's budget presentation and allocations and discuss the fiscal forecast 2022-2023 inflows and outflows. Budget Day 2023 from 6:30 p.m. only on WESN, the content capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it is Budget Day, where we await the words of our finance minister so that we could see what's in store for us for the next year. And there are a lot of stakeholders that are holding their breath in anticipation. Some maybe for good, others for bad. We know the private sector, they have a lot of concerns with regards to certain sectors of the public service, particularly as reported last week with regards to crime. Of course, all of the unions are looking to see exactly what the government will say or not say about money put aside for wage increases, and as well as the fact that the economists are probably looking to see just how much money is going into transfers and subsidies and how much into capital investment, into infrastructure and other long-term development plans. So, on Talking Point, we thought, hey, what do we think should be on our wish list? Because everybody wants more money, is a point that we made Friday. There's calls all around, you know, education, agriculture, tourism, what have you. But I think it's safe to say that we don't think that there's enough money to satisfy everybody's needs. Local government, there's a whole host of needs. What should be the priorities, I thought? At least, you know, it might not be the correct answer, but what do we think should be the things on the list, our wish list, that we think really critically need money now above other important, but maybe less important in the context of today things?
Well, I think certainly, as I mentioned on Friday, and I would repeat it again, I think the socio-economic situation in Trinidad and Tobago certainly is not reflective of what the Minister of Finance has indicated previously, where he spoke so greatly about our economy. I mean, we saw when the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, held an interview. He was part of an interview on CNN. And, well, that in itself did not necessarily paint the reality of what Trinbagonians are facing on the ground. So I think Colm Imbert, in his 8th budget, he has a serious balancing act. How is it that I satisfy the needs of a country right now to try and quell this socio-economic fever which is getting out of control, whilst also handling recurring expenditure, but ensuring that I have investments, sustainable investments that will bring returns so that there is revenue flow and you're generating income? How is he going to do that? A couple of things. First of all, you have to understand that this situation across the globe in terms of inflation. I mean, look at what's happening in the United States and the United Kingdom right now. More than likely, you're going to see both of those nations heading into recession in 2023, given the inflation rate. Furthermore, they've had to actually increase their interest rates. So that is something to look out for. But what effect is it going to have on Trinidad and Tobago? Well, what does a stronger US dollar mean in terms of us repaying our debt? What does a stronger US dollar mean in terms of us being able to repay our debt? So,
well, not just that, price of food goes up.
Well, yes, of course. So the price of food goes up, the income is lost further because our purchasing power, our spending power is going to decrease once more. You have to remember that households across Trinidad and Tobago, their disposable income has become weak considerably following the COVID-19 pandemic. But again, nothing has ever really been done to address that situation. So you have a Minister of Finance that has been in a position, he has been given a monumental task. And whilst I wouldn't be so quick to say that he has completely failed, everything that he has stated thus far and the positive rhetoric that he has painted of Trinidad and Tobago, it seems as though it's only reflective of his pocket and not the pocket of the man on the street.
I mean, so I don't know if he was the best man for the job. He was a man for the job, as former minister in the Ministry of Finance stated.
Well, many individuals have
right?
stated that. He was the only individual.
Well, he's the only individual. Let's put it this way, on our political spectrum right now, both sides of the aisle, he's one of the few, maybe the only one that could have done something. Was he the best one for the job? But the priorities, I think ultimately speaking now, where was the shift in gear, as you said? We have different circumstances. Why does it seem as though they're trying to manage things while staying on the same course? This isn't 2018, this is 2022, right? We've had the pandemic, we've had oil prices low, now we've seen oil prices high due to a war. The war is further exacerbating or compounding problems coming out of the pandemic. The inflation that the US is going to see. Food security, at the end of the day, I think is a major, major area that we needed money to be put into to help with regards to the infrastructure, to help develop the sector, especially because of the direct need. And yes, I get it. The money that we put in this budget, we wouldn't necessarily see the returns this year. But if we're going to have the same song and dance, and think about it, we're going to call out this problem over and over when things are bad. So wouldn't it be like having the HSF per se to have funds for a rainy day? Wouldn't it be a good idea to put plans in place? You know, if every time it rains, water comes through the window, shouldn't you fix the window? If every time we have economic problems, food security an issue, shouldn't we finally decide, hey, let's see about it? The other thing is education to me, because the system is falling so far behind, and I don't necessarily know exactly how do you fix it. Do we need all these schools that we have? Is it critical? Have we done a study on that? Could some schools potentially be closed down because they're redundant? I don't know. You know, is it that the facilities, we just literally need more physical space because we have too many children to educate?
Well,
but with facilities falling apart, right, and maintenance being an issue.
One can make the argument that the number of schools across Trinidad and Tobago, that is not the problem. You've raised the issue of maintenance. We have a tendency here in Trinidad and Tobago to build the best of facilities. We can have the state-of-the-art modern facility, a wonderful infrastructure, new schools, because quite frankly, people will say, listen, the school population does not equate to what we have in terms of infrastructure. In fact, the school population is larger than the facilities we have. However, we're working with what it is available to us. We have not been able to maintain that at all. And that is where the cost has gone up. You see, many a times an engineer will tell you, it is more expensive to renovate, right? You might as well just build a new school. If you get to a stage where renovations are so costly that the government has to keep deferring it, which allows for the building and the infrastructure to keep falling apart, what's going to happen there? Cost is going to go up. But you mentioned food security, and the cost of commodities worldwide and the cost of shipping worldwide certainly has gone up. We've done nothing at all to address food security in the last 8 years, right? We can speak about previous governments. I'm focusing more so on the Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert, at this point. We've done nothing. We've had an Agri-Forum Expo. That was good. Is that going to be reflected in this budget? I guess we'll find out in a couple hours. However, in terms of food processing, in terms of agro-processing, in terms of nutrition security, the most we've done is continue the box lunch program across the nation. That's the most that we've done.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with food security.
Exactly. One might say it has to do with nutrition security. It still has nothing to do with it.
No, because it doesn't actually solve the problem. Is not getting the food in TNT to the kids. At least not right now. The problem is getting the food in TNT.
And we are both aware that if the government wants to address agriculture, they should have done it 10 years ago. Because it's going to take 10 years to implement
even before
program,
that, to be fair, even before that.
But even if we cut the cost of food that is being imported, because currently we can't even feed Trinidad and Tobago with the local produce that we have. Even if it is that we cut that cost, you have to wonder if the government is going to say we're able to cut that cost, we're not spending there, we're going to spend more money in another area. Then the other side of it as well is people's disposable income, as I mentioned before, their purchasing power has decreased. Their purchasing power has decreased. So even if we promote more local produce, it goes beyond just promoting the agricultural sector. It goes around promoting the downstream energy sector, for example, because of herbicides, pesticides, all these things that are needed, right? So all of those things you have to try and balance. It doesn't take a lot to think about it. It doesn't take a lot to foresee this situation. What it is going to take is the will of the government to implement.
Well, a couple other things. We could argue the health system needs more funds, although right now I don't know if we really want to be critical, if that is what should be prioritized, because I think what we need to prioritize is things that's going to help the economy earn more money so that we'll have more money for other projects. I think our road transportation, to what extent does it cut down productivity in the country? Education, ironically, the sheer scope of the problem might not be something that can be fixed right now. It might need, as much as I'm saying that education is the biggest problems we have in our society, education might have to kind of like, we have to placate the situation, kind of hold it over, put some band-aids and hope for the best. Because the public service, with regards to efficiency as well, and the ease of doing business, those are two big things. And the overhauling the public service in a major way, digitizing it for more efficiency, right? To improve its ability to not just process paperwork, but handle, just handle the shared day-to-day business. Again, these things will help now, whether it's the private sectors, these are doing business, or even public sector entities and their efficiency administration, because name me one public sector entity that is at the very least breaking even with its books. TTPS, I know that the business chambers wanted more budget to the TTPS. I don't know if more budget is the answer there. Just throwing more money at it's not going to matter if the leadership is not good. So it might be the case where, look, what's the point of throwing more money at something? Really and truly, we need actual better ideas and execution and policy changes, maybe with regards to personnel. So to me, tourism, it's going to take a lot to get it off the ground. Is it worth it? Therein lies with tourism the critical question. My family's in tourism. Tobago, to some extent, a big chunk of it relies on tourism. Can it be turned around? Now we have a big problem with the air bridge and the price of tickets on the air bridge. One report saying that the true cost is $700. Will trading pay $700 to fly to Tobago?
They would.
Not all of them. So do we increase? Because you know, all of the things like CAL, TNTech, all of their financial shortfalls the government has to make off of. Do we demand that CAL become more break-even or profitable as much as possible? Do we say, hey, let the air bridge kind of go? To me, the Prime Minister's idea of a port in Turku and all of the development that could have sprung off of that for the highway, for the eastern side of the island, to make the travel to Tobago easier. I thought it was a good idea. I don't know if there's money for that right now. So tourism is one of those things where, as much as I would love to see it, I do think agriculture, the road transport plan, our internal transportation plan, and, well, public service overhaul and digitization. To me, those sorts of things, or digitization of the police. So while I'm not saying increase the budget, if that's to allow the police to have digital records, for the judiciary to have digital records, proper digital records, not a computer database that is never up to date to the paperwork, so they still use the paperwork.
Well,
right?
You've mentioned many things there, and I'm going to respond to most of them. I want to respond to tourism. I want to respond to Caribbean Airlines. I want to respond to road infrastructure and health. We have to go to break, but before we do that, I will just simply mention digital transformation has been on the lips of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance almost every budget since they came into office. One can make the argument that digital transformation was supposed to be Dr. Keith Rowley's legacy as Prime Minister. However, that may not be the case, and it's probably frustrating him because you have a Ministry of Digital Transformation, which, how often do they report to the public on what progress that they're making?
We haven't heard from them since the...
Exactly. Could anybody recall who the Minister of Digital Transformation is?
No.
So that's one. Two, because of that failure, because it's been a failure, Move Away now and his legacy is going to be the airport in Tobago, which is a whole other debate in itself. So let's not get carried away with that. But I'll respond to those points that you raised right after this commercial break here on WESN, the content capital. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. Join host Andy Johnson on WESN Monday, September 26th for Budget Day as we engage an expert panel of experienced economists and politicians. We break down government's budget presentation and allocations and discuss the fiscal forecast 2022-2023 inflows and outflows. Budget Day 2023 from 6:30 p.m. only on WESN, the content capital.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. only on your content capital, WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about what we would like to see out of the budget later today. And I was having to make some difficult choices, put my opinions out there. There's no easy answers, to be fair to all those that have had to hold the portfolio of Minister of Finance. But I just thought that we've reached a point in time where we have to think about things in two situations: cutting losses and increasing development spending. And I personally don't want to hear about increasing variable costs. And unless there's some pretty good justification by the numbers, social projects, I don't necessarily want to see any increases in that. There might even be an argument for a reduction in those things, but that, of course, might have a reverse effect of what you were hoping for. That could have some negative consequences to the economy as a whole, not just to people on the lower economic spectrum. So it's not so simple to go dollars and cents, but with regards to various areas of the country, Keaton, I made a few points. One of the things I didn't mention is custom duties. I'm not entirely sure how far that could go because that's government revenue. But that's also another area. Somebody else, I believe, on one of these shows on the network, interviewing them, he said, reduce customs revenues to help private businesses with regards to their escalating costs. I think there's some merit to that, but how far it could go, I don't know.
The government can do it if they want to. They've done it in many instances to help who are allegedly their finances. They can do it for
but
the
I'm thinking how much
businessmen.
revenue could they afford to lose? Because revenue that they lose is money that they can't spend on something else. So that
Sure,
is
the government's logic is taking a loan from China to pay it back to China with interest in order to build an airport. Right? And this is what I'm saying.
that we don't need right now.
Which by the way, no, and let's not even get caught up in that conversation. And it's something that is happening across the world, but we see the consequences of doing such.
Yes.
Now, you made other points previously, which I would respond to in a moment, but just to remind the nation that the Minister of Finance at the spotlight of the economy indicated that the government would have liked to, and probably will in this budget, implement a $1 billion cap on the fuel subsidy. So therefore, fuel prices at the pump will go up. Globally, it's fluctuating. They've gone back down, but we don't know what will happen in the future. Also, I have a feeling, and it's a weird feeling, but I can't help but think with that, the government is also going to try to phase out CNG and have purely hybrid cars on the road.
Phase out CNG?
Eventually, they're going to get rid of it.
Electric gas hybrids,
So,
not...
No, CNG. And they're just going to implement hybrids, which you said, electric gas. So CNG will get out the way, and we're only going to have...
I mean, I don't necessarily see why.
No, simply because of the cost. According to some, it's just not profitable. It's not even an automobile fuel. So, I mean, that's an entire element we could look at. Also, I think housing is going to increase. Local government is certainly a ministry to look at. And those are the areas that I think are going to be very interesting. Now, don't be surprised if the Minister of Finance, his preamble is about 2.5 hours long and the actual budget statement is about 45 minutes long. That is something that we saw last year, we saw previously, so I wouldn't entirely be surprised. I would just hope that in his preamble, he would come clean on the reality of the country and the reality of our economic situation. Even if it's painting a grim picture, politically, people will say he can't do it. He can't. He's the Minister of Finance. But in order for us to understand those difficult decisions that you have to make, you can't come and tell me, listen, the economy is booming. Oil and gas revenues are up. We are doing well and we're able to balance it. We're coming out of COVID-19 and we have remained buoyant. However, property tax will be collected by December and the fuel subsidy. No, you can't. This is the thing. You need to know how to communicate. In order for the population to understand those difficult decisions, you have to paint a reality of the economy, which more than ever, I will make the argument that even though there are external factors, is by the hand of this Minister of Finance over the last 8 years. Health. Health does not need more money. What the health system needs, it's a chain reaction. You saw the Minister of Health, Terence Yalsing, in almost every single COVID-19 media briefing. You heard from the doctors on the panel. Some of them, by the way, in fact, many of them, I'm not entirely sure. Let me not get into that now. I was going to speak about national awards. But you heard him speak about NCEs. In Trinidad and Tobago, we've done nothing to promote healthier alternatives. You heard them speaking about we need to cut our import cost. You heard from the Supermarkets Association that we need to promote more local. We need to promote healthier lifestyles. Why is it that the government has failed to do that? Who is it benefiting? At the end of the day, you promote a healthier lifestyle, promote healthier eating habits, promote exercise habits. Even within the workplace, stressful environment has an impact. You're going to help the situation in terms of health. You see, what is amazing in TNT is that if somebody coughs, they can go to the health center, immediately get Panadol, and it's free.
Yeah.
Right? And everything in Trinidad and Tobago now, doctors are just, everything is antibiotics. Every single thing in TNT is antibiotics. Right? You can help the health system. What the health system needs is a facelift. It needs investment in terms of helping the hospitals, helping the facilities, helping the infrastructure. We don't want to hear that the MRI machine has been down. We don't want to hear that you can't go and get COVID-19 test. You can't get it done here. You have to go here, and then you collapse before you even reach the other health facility. No. All of these things need to be seen to, whilst at the same time trying to reduce the cost in terms of people coming in, people coming out, repeated patients, repeated prescriptions. You have to try and deal with that.
Right.
You can't get rid of CDAP right now. You can't get rid of CDAP right now.
The problem with social programs is how do you control it without it being seen as unfair? So that's why Gates was just education for all. Easy, right? And then it was exploited. The same thing happens with healthcare. The same, depending on the system, you will see fraud. And I get your point, but to some extent, that goes back into, you could argue, just overhauling the whole public service, because you have to get the inefficiencies and the laziness. You have to promote the people who are willing to do the work, who are willing to obey the law, who are willing to work hard or work reasonably hard, right? Not necessarily, we don't need to, if we're demanding people to have to kill themselves to get this thing, working, then that and all is not sustainable. But yeah, therein lies the problem. How do you now, because a lot of people are not going to like to hear that. And I think one of the things is a lot of what you're asking for is still going to cost more money than what the regular allocation is going to potentially afford the Ministry of Health.
In terms of tourism, I would invest in Tobago. I wouldn't say Tobago is a dying brand. In fact, I think you have an opportunity.
Oh no, I don't think it's that dying brand.
No. I think you have an opportunity now more than ever to reinvigorate the tourism market. In Trinidad and Tobago, the market that I would invest in is certainly the services industry and the services sector. For example, we've heard it from multiple economists, and I agree. Yachting in Trinidad and Tobago could be a sector that we look at. Servicing, when you look at Caribbean Airlines, with the closure of Liat, with Caribbean Star no longer flying and not flying for some years now, you now have the opportunity for Caribbean Airlines to be the hub of the Caribbean. You now have the opportunity for Piarco Airport to be the central airport of the Caribbean. What Caribbean Airlines has...
Kind of rough where the tail end to be the central.
But you understand what I mean.
But Guyana is right next door.
You understand what I mean.
Yes.
Right? You have... They always say Tobago is a transshipment point. We can use that to our benefit. That being said, Caribbean Airlines, right now, more or less is the monopoly of the airlines in the Caribbean. They have not taken advantage of that. I think if you were to increase the ticket of the airfare to Tobago to full price, I think Trinbagonians will pay for it. I will pay for it.
I actually don't have a problem increasing the price of the ticket, because I figured if we're going to lose on the air-sea bridge, lose on the sea bridge. Don't lose on both.
Exactly. But even on the sea bridge, what you can do, you can charge, listen, in terms of sending your car across, we're going to charge you the full price. We're not going to even subsidize that. We would subsidize tickets for passengers. And we could make that argument, even in terms of sending goods across to Tobago. So
yeah,
all those things you can look at.
If you increase it too much, you're going up, because part of the problem is there are people who can and will and can afford to go, but there will be a certain amount of people who will no longer be able to afford to go. Don't mind that some of them might go to Barbados with more expensive tickets and pay for more expensive hotels, but that's besides the point. So we don't know to what extent this is going to shrink a market in Tobago, and therein lies the problem. It was set up to operate with these amount of flights at these ticket prices. They will have this amount of guests coming in. It was a very precarious balancing act. No one is ready for what if the apple cart gets upset. I hear you. For Carl's sustainability, for the sustainability long-term of it, it can't remain how it is. I'm just thinking that there's going to be a lot of complaints and growing pains to get there. The foreign tourists, ideally, is what the island should be depending on. But that's a long-term endeavor to get that market back.
So in the meantime, whilst you're investing in getting that market back, focus on local tourism. Tobago is dependent heavily on Trinidad, citizens from Trinidad heading across. Sorry, well, not citizens, residents heading across to Tobago. They're very much heavily dependent on that. This is what I'm stating. If you were to put on that full ticket price, people will pay it. It's double what they're paying now, but they will pay it. And I think also... it gives an opportunity for CAL not only in terms of increased revenue, but increased flights.
I don't know if they'll pay 7.
I think they would.
I don't know if they will pay 7.
I think they would.
Now, not everybody flies as much as I might fly, and I don't fly that often anymore. So maybe.
But then let's ask you that question. Do you think, what are your thoughts? Would you pay $700, the full airline price, to get across to Tobago? Let us know later on when we open up the phone lines. But those are areas you could look at. Okay, subsidize the ferry service. Now the other aspect is the wear and tear of the ferry service, but maintenance across Tobago as a whole has been a problem. Road infrastructure is another area that we need to look at, because soon people are not going to be able to afford to get to work. They won't be able to afford to purchase cars. The wear and tear of cars in Tobago now, the durability of cars, what we're seeing because of our road system, the cost of tires, the cost of brake pads, the cost of just
suspension.
Exactly. You know, in some areas you don't have street lights, but you have the biggest potholes. You don't have street lights, but you have the biggest potholes.
Oh well, hold on.
Right?
Don't talk about potholes. Maruga, yeah. That they literally, you know, you make the joke it's more pothole than road. No, literally, it was only pothole in some sections. There was literally no road.
Have you ever been on the Naparima Road? Oh my friend,
it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
I don't know if you could even classify that as a road. You know, so across Trinidad and Tobago, you need to address those situations because it does affect the efficiency of people getting to work. It costs fuel, the wear and tear on cars, the tires, all of that. Bear in mind, people assume that's not going to be. We don't even have an efficient public transportation system to say that people could see that as an alternative.
That's part of it.
So if that happens, when people are now relying heavily on these public transportation to get to work, because we can't afford to maintain a car, we can't afford to fuel a car. If that is going to be the case, you're going to have a burden on the current PTSE system, and maybe maxi taxis benefit. But then the other area, which is still illegal, such as PH taxis, guess what? That's also going to flourish.
I would love for a public transportation system. I don't know if a bus could make it into where I live because the roads aren't that wide, right? So I don't live on the highway. But I would love to have that ability to not have to go deal with traffic if I want to go around just during the day and not have to drive. That's one of the things with regards to cities like New York and Toronto that I just legitimately enjoy. I don't have to worry about a car. I don't have to worry about finding a parking spot. Like, I could just go. I could pick up and go, me, myself, and I don't have to worry about road accidents or road safety or how this person is driving or somebody cutting me off or all of those things. But we don't have that.
It's similar to the bus system in the United Kingdom. Though it is expensive, it is still cheaper than owning a car and maintaining a car in the UK. So the public transportation system in the UK, to a certain extent, it makes its money. And that is the thing. What you need to do is that you need to have a system like that. You can't go into roads, because I know where you live, you can't go into roads like that. You can't always go into all these residential areas.
Yeah.
But you meet them out on the main roads. The main roads, for example, further out from you, if you take a walk from your house.
I mean, that'd be like at least a 10-minute walk.
Well,
but I mean, at the end of the day, you know, yeah, that's feasible.
But guess what? Doesn't that also tie in? Because, listen.
Yeah, when I was in New York, I was taking a lot more longer.
The old people in the UK, in the 80s and 90s, are still walking on the road to get the bus. It helps. If you do that daily exercise, it helps.
And yes, there's a lot of, it's all of these unintended consequences that we don't see. So you're right with regards to, well, if we had just a little bit of walking. When I was in New York and Canada, I was walking. I had to walk from point A to point B to get whatever train or whatever. So you get used to it, you know, because of the convenience. So you're right, because the benefits of it, we don't see all of it, or we don't see all of the negatives.
So what we may be speaking about in Talking Point, you might say, is total nonsense. You've gone all over the place. You're speaking rubbish. You're not getting things straight. You're confusing yourself. Or you might simply say it's wishful thinking. Understand one thing. We don't expect the government to look at all of these things in the budget. Heck, even if they look at 15% of what we've spoken about, or 10%, we'd be very fortunate. The key is, if the government can listen to the people and also look at what's taking place in TNT, these ideas they can implement for the long term. You can see this as long-term investments. However, governments tend to be short-term. What are we going to do to get from this point this year to this point next year? How is it that we're going to finance us from being in September of 2022 to, let's just say, October of 2023? That's basically what they're going to look at. They're not going to look at 2, 3 years, 4, 5 years down the road. No, they're just looking at the short term. The government needs to invest, and we've given them some ideas this morning.
I mean, I wish the legacy project was a Toco dock. Right? Maybe I have it all wrong, and somebody could explain to me why it's not feasible, but just the arguments that I've seen so far, that could have potentially given us dividends down
the amount
the
of
line.
time and gas I would waste to get to that port. Fine,
but you save fuel on the ferry.
Build the port.
But it comes with imagine improving all the roads going eastward.
But that's just what I was about to say.
All of those things.
That can only work if you have the improvement of the road networks and infrastructure on the east corridor to get to that port.
No, and I understand that, but to me, the amount of dividends now that could be seen with regards to development overall, on top of making the ferry service more efficient and reduce costs, reduce maintenance fees, giving us more turnaround time, more ferry actual trips, that would have been more valuable to the people of TNT than an airport that has nobody coming to it.
Start with the Naparima Mayara Road, and then we will talk. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Injunction filed against tutor teachers directed to attend school. Tutor advises teachers to obey court ruling. Ministry of Education expects teachers to comply. And internationally, deadly gun attack at Russian school. Now for the details. Attorney General Reginald Amor last evening announced that an injunction was filed to prevent tutor from taking a day of rest and reflection today. This would have been the third time within the month of September that such action was taken by tutor. The Attorney General cited the action as illegal.
It is against the background of that threatened action that the government took the decision to approach the court, so that today we were able to receive an order of the court. The illegality of the action that is being undertaken by tutor and the teachers who are members of tutor is because of the simple fact that under Section 69(1)(d) of the Industrial Relations Act, the teaching service is an essential service. The teaching service is not permitted to take industrial action, whether by way of resting and reflecting and amounting to not turning out to work.
Well, in immediate response, Tutor President Antonia Taker de Freitas urged teachers to obey the court order and attend classes.
Tutor was not invited to be present at this hearing. However, the union's attorney indicated to the court that he was ready and willing to attend at the court's behest on our behalf. The court decided to issue an injunction to prevent educators from engaging in any form of industrial action. Teachers are ordered by the court to report for duty on Monday, 26th September. As your union's president, I advise we follow the mandate of the injunction, and as law-abiding citizens, we should all report for duty tomorrow.
The Ministry of Education, responding to yesterday's injunction, said it expects the compliance of tutor and all its members with the laws and the order of the court. Full attendance by all staff and students is expected today. On to international news now. A gunman has opened fire at a school in central Russia, killing at least 13 people and injuring 21, Russian officials say. Victims include 7 children at the school of about 1,000 pupils. The gunman has reportedly killed himself, and the motive is unclear. Emergency officials are at the scene. Russian media have posted videos which appear to show panic inside the building where the shooting took place. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, certainly looking forward to later, ladies and gentlemen. But, I mean, I asked a question this morning. I don't know if any of you are willing to answer it, whether or not you would pay the full price, rumored to be, I think it's between $700 and $800 TT for the ticket to Tobago to travel using the inter-island air bridge. So, let me know what you think, but also talk to me about what you expect and what you hope for in the budget later, because what you hope for is probably not what you expect, and what you expect is probably not what you want to hear. But the reality is, at the end of the day, the Minister of Finance, this is his 8th budget, his most important yet, and probably his best in terms of that windfall, considering the Russian-Ukrainian war. We have the phone lines open now, ladies and gentlemen. Call us and join us on Talking Point. We would love to hear from you this morning. Sean, well, I mean, some newspapers this morning have covered the public's hopes, and I guess they're saying that there are real pressure from high prices across Trinidad and Tobago. In the meantime, you just raised something off air.
No, well, just, you know, there was a PNM fundraiser on Friday, and the General Secretary of the party was pointing out that they have a wide cross-sectional support, and you know, it was a $1,500 a ticket, and they're having a good time. And I just thought maybe you need to worry about the little details of what you say just before budget. That is obviously going to have some people upset with you, right? I'm not gonna say it's wrong that there are going to be people upset with them, because you can't please everybody in times like these. But you know, to say that you're having a good time the Friday before the budget presentation,
well, I
$1,500 a ticket.
Listen.
Gala event anyhow.
Nothing is wrong with any political party holding a fundraiser.
No.
All right? Nothing is wrong with that at all.
I mean, that's debatable, but okay, sure.
But you're right, Friday before the budget. By the way, no media was allowed in the Hyatt or in the event. Yes, the event was at Hyatt. It was $1,500 a ticket. No media was allowed at it for whatever reason.
I mean, it's a minor thing. It's oh gosh, don't say things like that just before we know we're gonna have a hard budget, right? It's not a big deal, but still, you should know better.
$1,500 a ticket. Wow. Some of these ministers do absolutely nothing and then just live a wonderful life. We have a caller on the line with us from St. James. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, yes, good morning.
Morning.
I don't know if you guys, I'm calling from St. James. I don't know if you guys could explain something to me, which I am sort of not clear on. It has nothing to do with the budget. Last week, Mr. Griffith, Gary Griffith, stated that he is still applying for the commissioner. And on one hand, and on the other hand, he is running for elections in the next election process. On another hand, he told one of his constables that he cannot go up to elections and be a policeman at the same time. Now, this is not consistent at all. I don't know if you want to explain this to me. On one hand, he wants to go up to election and commissioner, and on the other hand, he's telling one of his Dwayne O'Connor that He cannot be and a policeman at the same time. I don't think you could explain that to me.
Yes.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. We'll respond off here. I didn't hear you too clearly. The audio levels were a bit low. But if you're asking about the former Commissioner of Police in his capacity as the political leader of the National Transformation Alliance versus his application to become Commissioner of Police, I would assume that if Gary Griffith's name, 1, is on the merit list, and 2, he is given the position, he will automatically resign as political leader of the NTA. However, if it is not given to him, he will remain as political leader. So I think that is just
There's another option.
Assumption to make.
There's another option.
What's that?
There might be a new way to do politics in TNT. He could be the NTA's political leader. Maybe. I don't know if the law says he could be Commissioner of Police and a political leader, but with regards to the general elections, we've already seen political leaders not be the head executive in the election that they win, so...
Really? Who's that?
What's a Duke?
No, he was political leader of the PDP.
Right, but he's not the chief sec.
He was not chief sec.
Right, so technically speaking, is there a way for him to be Commissioner of Police while his party has seats in Parliament? I mean, he's not going to be Prime Minister in his first election.
Listen,
that's very improbable.
Put it this way, nothing has been set in stone. He hasn't been given the position as yet. What he has done, I think he's called on the government's bluff in terms of the report. When I say the government, I mean more specifically the Prime Minister. The commission is actually the Police Service Commission is looking to put a commissioner by the end of this year.
Can he be a commissioner MP? Because he said he's challenging Keith Rowley's seat.
He will not be able. No,
but the general is in a few years from now.
No, he won't be able to. He'll have to give up his position. Although you see individuals, for example, such as Keith Scotland and Ford Khan, who were members of Parliament and still practice medicine and as an attorney at law.
Caller, I think what he's going to do is, if he gets his seat, very big if, of commissioner, he'll have that until the next general. And then he'll have to make that decision of what he's going to do.
But we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, I just called in and put my 2 cents in the budget. I wish that the government takes into consideration public in general and the poorer class of people when they're making their contributions, and try to help out the situation. Try with crime as well, try to do something to get out some sort of stability. The crime is really out of control and it needs some really good thinkers to try and help us with this, because it's damaging the image of the country and investors will turn away. I also hope that they can do the help of put prices somewhere or the other. It's very difficult for people to buy their supplies every end of the month, especially people who want fixed salaries and fixed income. But at the end of the day, whatever they come with, we have to accept it, because that's all we can do, talk about it and hope and wish for the best of it.
Yes.
Gentlemen, you have a good day and enjoy your morning, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much. You see that last statement that the caller from Diego Martin explained? Whatever they come with, regardless, we have no choice but to accept it and go along with it.
Kinda, yeah.
That's rather sad, isn't it?
Yeah, because our politics does not really have any sort of mechanism. You see, generally, Boris Johnson, they didn't do formal proceedings quite just yet to oust him. It was kind of in the realm of popular support and the informal. We don't have that culture here. You know, a lot of countries don't necessarily have that, and we're stuck with the only time we could really voice our displeasure in a meaningful way is at an election, which can't be every year, every month, every week. That's not practical.
I'm surprised there was no public referendum over the economy, or there was no consultations over the economy. You know, as there's consultations with everything.
I do feel, though, that one of the problems with citizens is that, generally speaking, they don't necessarily know. We don't know what's best for us because we don't know all of the information of just how the overall economy is going, right? We might know what we want right now. That's not always what's best.
Like I said, paint the reality for Trinidad and Tobago. Don't just talk your political rhetoric. We have a caller on the line with us from Shogunas. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes.
Good morning.
I see at your last program you agreed with me in the end where you said that promotions in the public service is based on who you know. I mean, I had warned you of this. I have shown you how to do it. I don't know if you agree with it. Today you mentioned education is a mess. And one of the biggest problems, I again explain this to you, is we talk about education to all, meaning everybody must do academic education. Then you talk about the maintenance of infrastructure. And again, that is something, for the same reason, government used to maintain the infrastructure, and not everything is given out on contract where you have to pay a 30% bribe, and nobody checks them. You also went and put up an education facilities agency just to maintain education, which is stupidity, because before that the works department would have concentrated their efforts during the holidays on having schools reopened. You talk about agricultural security, and you say you don't have enough money to do it. I have already pointed out that you don't need no money to get agricultural security. In fact, you would make money in addressing agricultural security. Any questions before my 2 minutes up? And then you have to answer when I hang up.
I have no questions for you, Professor, but I will just tell you, look out for a budget panel later, starting from 6:30 p.m. here on WESN.
My only thing with agriculture.
One would know annual administrative report.
Yes, I actually thought about that last night, and that was a point with regards to managing costs and doing feasibility studies on the decisions, because I do find that a lot of the times you do have to wonder just what is the reasoning behind some of these decisions that they make. And of course, if you don't do annual administrative reports, so you know, okay, what does it look like now in these current scenarios, so that then you could model it for other alternatives. Are we just shooting from the hip, shooting in the dark?
But thank you, Professor. We have another call on the line with us.
Thank you, Professor.
But thank you very much, Professor. If we could just raise the volumes, because the volume of the calls are a bit low. But good morning, caller from Miaro. Good morning.
Pleasant good morning to Sean and Keaton. And I just want to say it's a great day, a wonderful day to have a good day. And I will share that vision with you guys with the risk assessment and the understanding that you guys continue to push forward with the concerns that is plaguing our country. And attitude and aptitude is a serious problem in this country,
yes.
Whether it's government or citizens. I try to be a patriot of my country, but with the leadership of followers that I lead upon you. And I put that responsibility on your shoulder today because I am pleading. The roads in the southern district, the port in Galeota Point, right? We need to build and we need to put infrastructure with a vision. Then we run away from the problem of care and maintenance and development. Agriculture has been sitting there and waiting. We need help. And you guys are interjecting some good concern because without food, we can't survive and sustain. And that's a factual statement. The care and maintenance of the government framework is not working with the culture of people, and we need to get up from the butt and get the work done. Teachers already already. Come on, let us move forward, please. We need to bite and go forward. It's a transition of changes in the entire world. Let us be real. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Let us be real. So attitude is a problem in Trinidad and Tobago, which I agree with. Now, the attitude of those in higher offices should not reflect of the attitude of the people. I think people in Trinidad and Tobago know better.
I don't.
I think they know better. They just don't care. That is where the attitude problem comes in.
Is it because of political division? Because as you always point out, you are the champion of using race to divide us. And is it that, they want to keep us divided so that we don't actually deal with the real problems?
I think, now, and hear me out very carefully, I think people in Trinidad and Tobago are not ignorant. They're not naturally ignorant. I think people in Trinidad and Tobago are deliberately ignorant. They know that it's wrong. They know that this is not necessary. They know that this is totally unacceptable. But yet still they choose to do it. I think the reason why, in my opinion, the government has gotten away so long, and even the opposition, in terms of a very sour, pathetic attitude, is because they realize that people themselves practice that and people don't care. And they can get away with it. Okay, put it this way. If my attitude was unacceptable, if your attitude was pathetic, if we had that attitude and we came on this platform, are we in any position to really hold the government to account? Because quite frankly, we'll be criticizing them for their attitude, for their ways, and saying that their policies are wrong. But if we have the same attitude and the same behavior, what makes our policies right? In other words, we can't convince the people, can we? We have the same attitude. We have the same attitude, we have the same mindset.
Listen, I don't necessarily prescribe to the fallacy of you need to be perfect in order for your opinions on one topic to be valid. I don't need to have my house perfectly clean and organized for me to be able to work in an organized fashion. That's just an example, right? I don't need to be a fast runner to say that my ability to process information is going to be quickly. So we don't need to be perfect. But what we do present, we can't be hypocrites. We can't directly in our lives contradict what we're preaching. And we also have to have correct reasoning, because to some extent, it's yes, the messenger does matter, but the message is paramount, not the messenger, right? If somebody from the government or the opposition had a good idea, we should be able to agree with the idea on the merits of the idea. Now, granted, if they have a track record of bad things, we should do due diligence into the idea, not just take them at their word. But again, the idea stands on the merits of its idea. I think part of the problem is that we're lazy. We want to take shortcuts with our politics. We just want to listen to who we like. Okay, they said something that I want to hear. They said one thing that I want to hear. I'm not going to worry about the 15 things that I don't like that comes from them or their side. I'm just going to follow, like, you know, the Pied Piper is tooting his horn and I'm going out of the city, right? We're lazy with how we determine who to vote for. We're lazy with how we determine what is our priorities.
Sean, put it this way, let me use a quick example before we go to our next caller. If somebody...
Because we're led wrong by the
if somebody would come on and say, that blasted, stupid, ignorant, damn fool of a Minister of Finance versus, well, I don't think the Minister of Finance is painting an accurate picture. And who are people going to understand more?
Sensationalization.
And quite frankly, we have to cut that nonsense out.
And that's the thing. It's not about getting to the issues. A lot of people in these political debates, it's more about entertainment.
They rather the entertainment rather than the critical aspects of the conversations that we completely miss half the times. Call on the line with us from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Morning, Fisherman. Mr. Fisherman.
My take on the budget. I feel that gas and diesel are going to raise. Gas is going to go up by $1. Diesel by 50 cents. And I expect tax gas to raise. And then we had the property tax coming on us. So how much more the working class people, the normal citizens, are going to pay in taxes? Because we can't even live comfortable. Check what's going on in the Gulf for the pirates, so you can't work comfortable. What really going on? Well, I'm only hoping that they put a budget that we could survive. We have to pay bills, all these kind of, you understand? So I might take on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Property tax is an interesting point, because I think when we first spoke about it, there was no war in Ukraine. And food prices didn't have the second and third and fourth wave of inflation. And gas prices didn't skyrocket to drive some of that inflation. So now We spoke about property tax earlier in the year, maybe last year. Now, I don't know if I think it's a good idea to add that as much as local government needs funds. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea to put that on top of everything else. Because I think the fuel subsidy, the price of gas going up, I could accept that, but not with property tax. I don't know.
You could accept the price of fuel going up?
Kind of, yes, I could. Because in part, again, it has to be part of a wider transport plan. It's an incentive now to carpool more, to use public transportation. But if the plan is a failure overall, then yes, this is just this is potentially a failure.
We have to take a quick break very shortly. But let me just tell you, as you started off this program, you said, my commute isn't really that long, you know, from the studio to
I get it, yes, I understand.
You know, but for me, my commute to get to Port of Spain is much longer. I burn a lot more fuel.
Let's put it this way. My family's car burns a lot of fuel. My mother, who still works, she burns a lot of fuel.
But as you said it, Sean, you have to fix other areas first. And then there's an understanding about increased fuel prices. Okay, carpooling, public transportation. If we can sort out public transportation and the state of roads and whatnot, I'm pretty sure, even the traffic situation, Sean.
Let's put it this way. I think that it might be necessary, and that makes the need to improve our transportation systems and policies. It's just a symptom. But I don't know if we could rightfully afford. I get it, wanting to insulate ourselves from shocks from the price of gas. It's the same thing what they tried to do with flour at National Flour Mills, where they took the long view approach. It's one of the reasons why I believe Ansel Roger is willfully ignorant or just straight up misleading us with regards to what he said recently about the power agreements.
Yeah. Well, folks, let's take a quick break here on Talking Points, and we thank everybody for their calls. We'll be right back after this.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Join host Andy Johnson on WESN Monday, September 26th for Budget Day as we engage an expert panel of experienced economists and politicians. We break down government's budget presentation and allocations and discuss the fiscal forecast 2022-2023 inflows and outflows. Budget Day 2023 from 6:30 p.m. only on WESN, the content capital.
Talking Points, you saw it yourself. Budget panel 2022-2023. The facts, the figures, the future. Well, that kicks off from 6:30 p.m. here on WESN, the content capital. We have an excellent lineup for you, so look out for that discussion later. But Mr. Sean Michael Small, I think that's where we're going to have to wrap it up. We await the Minister of Finance, and then tomorrow morning, well, probably have a headache.
All I'm going to say is that, and we've spoken about this before, right? Government, you've been in power for 7 years. Stop bringing up what the UNC didn't do. If you said it when you now came in, fine. It's 7 years removed. With regards to all of the things we're going to hear from the various stakeholders once this budget is read, we've already heard something from the OWTU If you have claims about situations that happened years or even decades ago, why did you wait until now? Why did you wait until this week, the day that you said it, whichever day it is? Why haven't you been tooting that situation for a long time? Explain that to us. And also, please people, it's not so simple with regards to long-term agreements, right? With regards to what we're planning to do to determine what is best or what is not. We have to understand that these things are complex. If power purchase agreements are to our detriment, long-term things are supposed to give us a stable price. You need to give us some receipts as to how that is bad.
Anyway, folks, as we wrap things up, Sean Michael Small, thank you very much. Thank you very much to our directors, and we look forward to the budget statement and the budget panel. And just to inform you, the Minister of Trade and Industry, Paula Gopi-Skoon, the Honourable Paula Gopi-Skoon, she will be joining WESN's budget panel later tonight. So you can look forward to her being a part of the conversation and her comments to justify the government's decision-making and the government's position as we go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, just remember, as ironic as it may be, today is a good day to have a good day. And hopefully things are good indeed. I'm Keith and Sean. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Nicholas.
WESN